So I want to present to you kind of a different perspective on the story of Adam and Eve in the garden and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and why God warned them not to eat from this tree. And why would he put this tree in the garden to begin with, right? So first of all, we have to understand this story was never meant to be taken literal, ever. The ancients of the day, when they would read this story or it was told to them before it was actually written down, never understood this story literally. The earth was not literally made in 6 days. The story was not about a literal garden and literal trees and a literal serpent, or literal people for that matter. This was all symbolic that represented something. And to really understand what's being talked about here, we actually need to go to the New Testament, to what Jesus was revealing in his teachings to understand this story. And so Jesus asserts himself and tells people something very radical for that day and age, and that is that the kingdom of heaven is within you. And the Garden of Eden representing paradise, and there's an interesting correlation between the Garden of Eden and the New Jerusalem in Revelation. Representing paradise would represent heaven, every need provided for, without worry, without care. They really didn't need to do anything but enjoy. And so there was in that these trees represent thoughts. Think of them as thoughts, as creativity, right? Because the Adam and Eve represent the left and right hemispheres of the brain in the physical, which even the physical brain itself represents something in the spiritual. Reality itself is a symbol of the spiritual world, and words are symbols twice removed from reality. And so you have this left brain Adam, logic and mathematics, and then you have this right brain Eve, which is creativity and intuition and imagination. Okay, so the question I always had in church is the serpent was in the garden the whole time, and why didn't he go to Adam? Why didn't he go to Adam before Eve was even made, and tempt Adam to eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil? Why did he wait till Eve all of a sudden came on the scene? And one thing we have to understand, that the Bible is approaching just the creation of this universe, and what Jesus was actually teaching in the Bible for those with eyes to see it. But he more blatantly says this in A Course in Miracles, is that God had nothing to do with the creation of this universe. So let's go beyond even Gnosticism, because the Gnostics talk about the demiurge, and they make all of this very real with the archons and Yod-Baoth and Sophia and everything like that, which all of these are symbols of your mind. And I'm not talking about the physical flesh matter. I'm talking about the thought processes. The same with the Greeks, when they would have Zeus and Poseidon and all this other stuff. All of these were archetypes. Same in Egyptian culture, when you have Isis and Ra and all of these other gods. These were all representations of something internal in you. And so this is how we get a lot of people in massive amounts of confusion in this, is they take all of this literal. And it was never meant to be taken literal. Never meant to be taken literal. And so, essentially, in this story, right, let's just go off the framework of the Bible, being that you have God that created them and said, do not eat from this tree, for in the day that you do, that you will die. And then, of course, people will say that the serpent was trying to liberate Adam and Eve, and this goes into schools of thought and Kabbalah and everything else. And even in the Gnostic text, where you have the heroic Eve that was actually liberating mankind from the demiurge, and trying to free humanity. but the kingdom of heaven is within you. And so we have to take it at that. And so what God was saying is, what does the tree of the knowledge of good and evil truly represent? So you have evil on one spectrum and you have good on the other side. And in between is a valley of separation. This is what it truly means. It has nothing to do with good and evil in the sense of action. It has everything to do with a thought process, because the kingdom of heaven is within you. It is your mind, not your brain. That is the Garden of Eden. When your mind is in unity, when it's in unison, when it's together, when it's not opposed, when it's not a house divided, as the New Testament says. All of this language is about your mind. And so this is all God was simply telling them. You can eat of every tree. You can create. You can do whatever it is that you want to do, but do not do it from the position, from the thought that you are separate from me and I am separate from you and you are separate from your brothers and sisters. Because in the day that you do, you will die spiritually. You will become blinded. And now is when greed and lust and power and control all come into the scene. That's when the ego will become formed in you. Well, the thing that we don't understand or haven't been taught in Christianity is that the Christian Bible in the beginning is written from the perspective of after the separation already occurred. The mind of Christ had already become divided. This is the Elohim in Genesis 1, and Jesus echoes this in John when they were going to stone him because they thought he was saying he was God. He says, no, I'm a son of God, and I'm telling you, you're all children of the Most High as well, which he was quoting Psalm 82. And did you not know that you are all gods? It's the exact same word, Elohim. And Elohim is a representation of the collective totality of the thoughts of the mind of Christ. And it wasn't God that created this universe, because then it's clarified later in the New Testament when it says all things were made by Christ and for Christ and through Christ, and not one single thing that was made apart from Christ. That means separate from Christ, and it was all made for his good pleasure. We're told exactly right there that it was the Son of God. And all of this is echoed in A Course in Miracles. Jesus is saying the same thing. God has nothing to do with the creation of this universe. Otherwise, he would be just as insane as you, just as wicked as you, just as awful and vengeful and wrathful as you. But I come to tell you he's not. And this is the whole message of Jesus in the New Testament. This is the gospel. This is the good news. God is nothing like you. God is not holding a grudge against you. God is not judging you, but you are judging yourself. And you judge yourself by the way you judge everyone around you. And for the same measure that you judge another, it'll be measured back upon you, because you're only ever judging yourself, because you are all parts, pieces of the one mind of the one Son of God, Christ. Your true self, your true nature, your true identity. Love you.